What's up guys? Today I'm going to show you how to clone yourself in your videos. This is a fun technique to use and you can actually fool people if they don't know you too well. I've tried to explain this a number of times to different people and I've gotten some blank stares because even though it is a simple concept, it can be kind of hard to wrap your head around if you don't know about editing or anything like that. So I'm going to be editing in Premiere, but as a demonstration I'm going to show you how a clone video is made. So the way a clone video is made is you've got two layers. You've got your first layer with you, and then you've got the second layer with you. Don't make fun of my demonstration. This is just for demonstrational purposes. The only thing about the top layer is that half of it's cut away, revealing the bottom layer, and that's what sells the clone effect. So now that you know how a clone video is put together, let's talk about how to shoot it. First of all, you're gonna have to have your camera on a tripod or something steady so that it's not moving at all between your two shots. Second, you can't have anything moving in your background. Now this probably wouldn't work right here because it's windy today and that's why I've got a dead cat on my mic. Yeah, you might have been wondering what that is. That's a mic, okay? That's not just some pom-pom. But anyways, you can't have anything moving in the background or else it's gonna mess up the effect. Everything's gotta be still. The third thing is that you need to keep what you're saying in mind. And what I mean by that is the first video needs to line up with the second video as far as the words go. So what you say in the first video needs to line up with what you say in the second video. And it can actually be helpful to write out a simple script if you're going to be talking to yourself so that you'll know what the other person is saying at what time. Because when you're recording it, you're actually just talking to the air. And I know that's a weird concept of interacting with yourself, but you'll get it. The fourth tip, I guess you could call it, is don't use a low aperture. If you have that low aperture and that shallow depth of field, if your subjects are off a little bit, if you've got one further away from the other, like in the video that I'm using, you're gonna get two different depths of field and they're not gonna line up well. You're gonna see the blurred background in one side of the video and a crisp background in the other side. So don't use a low aperture. I would suggest using an aperture of 4 or maybe 5. And then the fifth tip is making sure that there's a gap between your clones when you're shooting. So when you shoot the first video, you might be right here. When you shoot the second video, you might be here. Just make sure there's a good distance between the two invisible clones. If not, you're gonna get some weird effects happening. I'll talk about that later. All right, so now that you've got your two clips shot, it's time to jump into editing where the magic happens. So go ahead and start a new project and import your footage, obviously, and then you're gonna turn the opacity of the top layer down so you can see the bottom layer. Now that you've got your opacity down, you're gonna want to find that gap between your two clones. Like I was talking about earlier with the gap between both of you. You're gonna find that gap and this is where you're gonna draw your mask, which is the next step. To make a mask, the first thing you wanna do is zoom your footage out in your display panel and then go over to Effect Controls and click Free Draw Bezier. Now go back over to the display panel and make your 4 points around where your clone is gonna be. And it's gonna create a mask and you should see both of your clones at this point. Now you might have a little issue here. You see, when you move from one spot to another to shoot the next part in the video, the two separate clips I was talking about, your lighting in the scene might change a little bit. Even if you're using a light stand and you haven't moved anything, your shadow can cast a different direction, or if you're shooting with daylight like I was doing, a cloud could have moved in front of the sun, anything can happen, and it can make a difference that you can see in the split of the mask. So to fix that problem, there's two ways to fix it. The first one is to feather the edges of the mask. This is why you need a good gap between your two clones. You feather the edges good and you shouldn't notice it. Now the other way to solve it is to color correct the other clip to make it match, but that's a little more complicated. I'm not that good at that. I know it's complicated and it's tedious. So make sure there's a gap between your clones in the first place and you shouldn't have a problem.
Today, I'm gonna explain it in an illustrated manner in editing software and hopefully you'll be able to understand it. It's really not as hard as...
Hey, are you shooting another video?
What are you doing here?
What? I thought you...
I left, no.
You gave me free time.
I left you to edit our last video.
Oh.
No,
Okay.
I did not give you permission to do that.
Fine,
You
whatever.
get back in there and edit. I don't want to see your face again until you're done. Now that you've got your two clips in, you've created a mask around one so they're both visible, and you've feathered the edges so it looks like it's just the same scene all the way across, you're pretty much done. The only thing left to do is to line up your clips, which you may have already done. Line up your clips so that your words line up with each other. And that can be a little tedious. You're just gonna have to move them around and play with it until you know, your clone is responding at the right time to you. So after you do all this, you're done. Go ahead and export it, post it on Facebook, say that you've got a twin that nobody ever knew about, and it's pretty hilarious to see what people say. So that's it from me, guys. If you hit that subscribe button, it really helps me out. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.